Abby Glassenberg from Craft Industry Alliance. I hope you are having a fantastic day wherever you are. We are here every Wednesday for our member spotlight, and in just a few minutes, we're going to be joined by one of our amazing Craft Industry Alliance members, Valerie Moreno. So I'm excited to talk with her, and she'll be joining us in just a few minutes. But in the meantime, I thought I would just tell you a little bit about what is going on at Craft Industry Alliance. So coming up on Tuesday of next week, which is my birthday, August 3rd, we are going to be having our monthly meetup. We do it on Zoom, and all of our members are invited. You get to come together, and it's called the Craft Business Roundtable. It is one of my very favorite things that we do because I absolutely always learn so much from our members. And it's an opportunity. First, we kind of talk about what's going on in the industry. So if you're interested in keeping up with industry news, want to know kind of the latest, we do that at the top of the meeting. And then after we talk about what's going on in the industry, then we have an opportunity to talk about what's going on in our own businesses. And it's great. People share a rose, something positive. They share a thorn, something they might need some support on, or they ask a question of the group. And we have had some fantastic discussions. Recently at the Craft Business Roundtable, we talked about returning to in-person shows and how people are feeling kind of as we come out of the pandemic about that. And we've just had such good discussions. I see Valerie here, so I'm going to invite her to come join us. But I hope you will come to our Craft Business Roundtable. And if you're not a member yet, you can absolutely join today and join us on that meeting on Tuesday. Hey, Valerie, how are you?
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Thank you.
I'm going to turn my volume up because for some reason I feel like it's a little quiet. Oh yeah, that's on my end. Okay, sorry about that.
Okay.
Valerie, tell us a little bit. First, tell us where you're located. I'm in the Boston area.
So I live in Maryland in the Mid-Atlantic.
Okay, nice. I actually grew up in Maryland. I grew up in Potomac, Maryland, in Montgomery County.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a great
totally
part
cool.
of the country.
Yeah, I like that. Absolutely. I went to college in Baltimore too. So I'm a Maryland person. Yeah, so you are kind of known as the knitting fairy godmother, which I think is such a great moniker. And can you tell us a little bit about sort of what that means to you?
Well, first we need glitter stitches. So you get glitter stitches and I get glitter stitches and our projects get glitter stitches. And that's so special because we use the glitter stitches as a tool, a getting ready ritual to get ready for our projects. And that's a nice, fun way to get ready to knit and just take the time for yourself to knit and have your project and the time with your needles. So there's the process crafting where we take time to deliberately knit, and then there's the final product. You know, whatever you get to wear is so special and creates memories because there's things I've made that it's like a living photo album. So I remember when I made that item, and then when I wear that item, I get all of those wonderful memories. And for me, as we've shifted towards digital, I've lost the tangible pictures. So then my knitting becomes the tangible memory for me. And, you know, I get to have those happy memories.
Yeah, I think that is so relatable for anybody who does crafting, which is that you look back at these projects and you're like, oh yeah, when I made that, you know, I was, you know, whatever it was, whatever you were doing or going through in your life, it's totally reflected in the memory of the time you spent with those materials on that project. And that's so nice. So I think that's great. And so you are a knitting teacher, and I'm wondering if you can tell us first a little bit about how you learned to knit and then how you got into teaching knitting.
Well, I'm so sad I don't have a clear memory learning how to knit, and I just wish that I did because that would be so special. From a heritage perspective, my mom was a home ec teacher, so we had things like knitting and baking and the home economics around. That's the kind of stuff that we would do during summer break. So knitting and crochet and sewing was always around the house, and I just don't have that one moment where I went from a non-knitter to a knitter. Um, but I love everyone has a great origin story with how they learn their craft, and I think that story is part of how we relate and think about the things we experience in our life, and that's really important.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so at some point in your childhood, sounds like probably from your mom, you learned how to knit. And when you did learn, did it stick with you all the time? Like, were you knitting all the way through high school and after high school, or did you kind of put it down for a while and then return to it?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question too, because we all have things that we go deep really quick or that we take breaks. And for me, knitting was something that I took a break. So I always dabbled. It was never really something I went deep on. And then I went through a major life experience, which happens with a lot of knitters. And I came back to it, and then I went deep. And after that, like the dominoes had been nudged, and we went down the slide. But then I took another break. I moved to a tropical place. I lived where it was hot and there was no knitting there. So that's where I took up the teaching piece. I went and did teacher training and really focused on the craft of teaching. And now that I live in a place where I can wear my hats again, my shawls, I put the two together. So that's sort of how I got to this place.
Got it. And so was your teacher training just, I have a master's degree in education and was a teacher prior to doing what I do now. Was your teacher training like that, kind of more of a general teaching and not specifically on teaching knitting?
So I've done both. I'm a certified knitting instructor through the Craft Yarn Council, and I've studied with the National Guild, the Knitting Guild Association. So I have knitting teaching credentials, and then I learned how to teach adults in the adult teaching method that I trained in and went deep on that subject. So I have the method that works for me, and I found the most success. What's great about it is that it translates digitally, so it's something that we can even do without being in person.
That's fantastic. And I think that's really great that you study teaching adults because that is a somewhat different, I don't know, skill set, I guess, than teaching kids. And I wondered if you have any tips for people who are just getting into teaching their craft, maybe to like for working with adult learners, because adult learners come to the table with a lot and have helping to sort of break through is it sometimes can be challenging.
Yeah, so this is my secret, my tip. You start by defining the topic, and then you show an example, and then the students do. And that's the secret. That's the method, that's the sequence. It becomes nuanced because you have to take a simple idea and then build on that simple idea. So you have to think about the level of your students, and you have to sort of teach to the lowest knowledge level and then build on that. But for me, what I've learned is that practice and repetition are so helpful, and I learn more through that process. So both as a student, right, the best way for me to learn is repetition, and as a teacher, the students that are at a higher level that I'm teaching still get that repetition. Maybe when they learned that idea, they got this missing foundational piece, even though they're higher or have more knowledge about the topic. So that's how I think about it.
Yeah, that's great. Those really good sort of basic ideas about how to approach breaking down a sometimes complicated topic like knitting into bite-sized pieces and giving people plenty of independent practice to master it before they move forward. And do you ever encounter those adult learners who are sort of like, I'm not creative, or they feel like defeated before they even get started? Because that's always hard too. You know, I think kids come in and they're like, I'm the best artist, But adults a lot of times come in and they're like, I'm bad at art, you know, and I'm not creative. So I don't know if you have thoughts about working with that mindset.
I hold so much space for that tender place, and I know what it feels like. It is so scary sometimes, and I think in awe of how children can be so sort of inhibited or like they don't care, they're just going to try. So for me, the way that I do that as a teacher is that I'm always trying things that are new to me, to remember what it's like to be that beginner, and then remembering the fear that I experienced, the scariness, the uncertainty, all of the feelings that a new person feels. I've just felt that when I tried the new thing for me a week ago, and I think that helps keep everything really, we're all on the same level, and just because I'm an expert in this one topic doesn't mean that you don't have life experiences as a student to help.
Right.
I think for me, knitting has enough rules that I can explore things like creativity because there is enough of a formula that I can follow, and then I can play with color, or I can play with my version of the result.
Yeah, and that's great. I think that those boundaries are really helpful for somebody who feels like, oh, I'm not an artist, you know, but to say like, well, there's a pattern, there's boundaries you can, and then you can be creative within that. And that makes it a little bit more approachable. And you can develop the skill, and it's really a skill anyone can develop. And then, you know, you can kind of go from there. So it is a really nice craft in that way, you know. Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about some of the places where you've been teaching. It sounds like you've definitely been able to teach students online. I know you do knit-alongs and things like that online, which are really successful. But as far as in person, maybe prior to the pandemic, or if you have plans post-pandemic of where you teach in person.
Yeah, so prior to the pandemic, I was teaching in Maryland at my local yarn shops.
Oh, nice.
I'm really involved with the National Guild Association local chapters here in Maryland. We're so lucky to have a network of that group. So I was doing a lot of the teaching with those groups and planning our programs and that type of thing. And then since I'm back in Maryland now, the pandemic sort of put a pause on everything. So as we move forward through 2021, I'm got some teaching submissions submitted. I'm waiting to hear back for the dates and if we're going to be in person or not, because you know that might
Yeah,
still, we don't know.
we don't know.
Everything's a rough draft, so yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And do you want to give a shout out to your local yarn shop where you teach so they can get some love?
So right now, Wool Winders, they have two locations. One is in Rockville and one is in Annapolis. And I will also shout out to my favorite Maryland dyer, 29 Bridges. So we're having a virtual knit along that starts in September.
Nice. That's so nice. And I love the way that, you know, knitting really can also build community, because it sounds like you've really connected with lovely, like people, fellow teachers through the guild, with shop owners, with indie dyers, just building this community of people around this craft as well.
It's been so interesting to navigate the knitting and the pandemic combined, because knitting can be something you do by yourself and in a group, and so even then it's a really great introvert extrovert activity, and we can make it work for the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, wonderful. So tell our audience who's here today, thank you everybody who joined us, where people can come check you out. I know you send out the V letter. That's the right name, right? That's like your newsletter with knitting tips and things like that. So tell everybody where they can kind of keep following along with you.
Sure. So Instagram is a great place. If you want to sign up for the knit letter, it's got the V because it's the V stitch. That's the knit.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
And it's my name because my name's Valerie. So
right.
There's, you know, symbols and everything. And I send out a weekly newsletter with what's happening and yeah, just, come along and see what's knit with the magic.
Wonderful. That's so awesome. Thank you so much for being a Craft Industry Alliance member, first of all, and also just for coming today and telling us a little bit about your knitting journey and about your teaching journey.
Thank you, Abigail.
This has been wonderful. Okay. Bye, everybody. Thanks
Bye.
for joining us. See you next week.